interesting conversation, and we talked before getting into it, and man, we both are extremely excited about this particular conversation. And the conversation for today is reframing common myths about men and women. Now, I don't know about you guys, and Anita, I don't know about you, but I've had a number of them run through my head before I kind of ice down the numbers, the ones that I want to talk about. How about you?
It was a bunch, but
It was
we
a,
gotta narrow it down because we could be here all day.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, with that being said, I think we're just going to go ahead and dive into that. Now, if you're listening, and first and foremost, I just want to thank you guys for being a part of the show. And here's what I want to do: I want to make this an interactive conversation. So, as we're going through these conversations, please put your responses into the chat. We will read your responses out loud and respond to your responses as we go into it. And if you have any of those myths that you think of as we're going through this conversation, please add them. We would love to bring them to the topic of discussion for tonight's conversation. Now, that being said, the first one I want to kind of bring to the table is the one that I know that every man under the planet want me to talk about. So I'm just going to put it out there first. Women are emotional creatures. Now, let's before I let you dive on it, because I know you're ready. Before I let you dive on it, hold on. Let me give a little context,
I'm
right?
antsy already.
I know you're ready. I can see it on your face. So to provide some context to this statement, right? Men believe that, they kind of believe that a given dichotomy of the extremes. Women make decisions. Not all of them, first of all, but they make decisions based upon their emotions. And so whether they are extremely excited or whether they're just distraught, just torn apart, men actually believe that those things contribute to the ultimate decision that they're going to make in the end. So, with that being said, how would you respond to that thought process?
I don't think that we're overly emotional and we make decisions based off of our emotion all the time. I just believe that we are in touch with our emotions from birth on up. We're told it's okay to cry, it's okay to express ourselves. So men see it as we're overly emotional, where I see it as they aren't emotional enough or they're not sharing enough about their emotions. So therefore, it makes it seem as if we're just doing the most when we really aren't. We
Mm-hmm.
want the men to join in and share their emotions, but because we're looked at as emotional creatures, emotional spending, or we just get upset and we do things out of emotion. Where the opposite of that is men shut down, where we don't. We express ourselves. So I'm not going to say we're overly emotional. We just know what we want. I know that's coming. What we want, and we know how to express ourselves. So, because we know how to express ourselves and work through our emotion in that expression, that doesn't mean that we are just out here willy nilly making decisions based off of our emotions. And that's just my take on it.
Yeah, so this is the shutdown face, by the way. I'm not gonna lie. In the past, I was guilty of that in the past. I'm not gonna lie. Like, yeah, I'm there. You got me. Seriously, because you're right. You're absolutely correct. I mean, it was for us, and I don't want to get ahead of myself because I believe we're going to go there as well. But for us, it's just a different story. You know what I'm saying? And because of that particular story, if we can't gain any type of resolution or some type of balance to where, what we tend to believe, where, conversation can actually exist, to where we can come up with some type of solution based discussion, to where we don't feel like we're jousting back and forth, right? Then we
Right.
just like, okay, I'm done. I can't. I'm tapped out. We shut down. So yeah, you're right. And I'm not saying that it's good or bad. And there are some
Right.
other schools of thoughts like, I can go into that later at a later point in time. But there's no need to argue. The competitive nature is the thing that we try to avoid because we shouldn't be competing against one another. And I think that has always been one of those interesting dynamics when it comes to emotion. Now, that being said, I'm going to yield to you, ma'am, and I'm ready for you to hit me across the head with this question because I know it's coming.
So, because we're already talking about emotion, I'm going to go back to men. Why is it that, or a myth is, men don't know how to express their emotions? And is it because society has told them that if they do, they're considered to be weak? And why do they shy away once they are in relationships or committed relationships with someone that they want to spend the rest of their life with, they still don't want to expose those emotions.
Yeah. So great question. And from a man's perspective, I can say, and I don't speak for all men. I want to make sure I start off by saying that. Um, I would say that initially, when we first start out as young, adolescents, you kind of hit the nail on the head earlier. We're not necessarily taught how to, harmonize with our emotions, and so in essence, get up, don't cry, stop crying, brush the dirt off, be good, whatever that looks like. Um, you know, it's a lesson that is learned going forward. So, in essence, what we learn based upon that is that it's not good for men to become overly emotional. And, of course, there's also that toxic masculinity conversation that yields in the background to where you have those people who put men in a particular situation to where we don't actually tap into that emotion. So now, when we have a person who has a better understanding, I'm not going to say a great understanding, that has a
Right.
better understanding of their emotions, and I don't have such a great understanding, but I'm learning and I'm open to learning, but I don't have a great understanding of it. And when we come together, when you give me the extreme versions of your emotions and I'm still learning, I run into what is called sensory overload. Sensory
Mm,
overload makes me view you as almost adversarial because you, even though you don't mean to, it's almost as like you're yelling, at me. And we got it. We understand that you're very passionate, which is, I think, the emotion that you're trying to tap in at that particular moment. But passionate, when it's heightened sense of emotion, it sounds like yelling. And
got it.
yelling, we don't necessarily do well with, especially if we say we're going to do this for sickness or for health or the death do us part. That doesn't sound like, how do we like to say, like we said the last time, that doesn't sound like hell or high water to me. That sounds like you bringing the hell and I'm about to hit you with the high water. Because at the end of the day, it seems like we're being, it sounds like we're being combative. And combative
Right.
is never good because we should not be in a combative relationship. So the unrealized emotional variations sound like to us noise. And most men, when it comes down to it, we just want peace. We don't want you to be quiet. We want you to still talk to us, but talk to us to such a degree that we can hear it because trust me, your voice is harmony to me when you bring it down within the octave that I am accustomed to. But once you start existing up here in the stratosphere, it's very difficult. So it's not that we don't have a desire to become more in tune with our emotions. The reality of the truth is, if you believe it or not, you actually help me to become more in tune with my emotions because you have a better understanding of yours. So the
That's
level of
good.
patience that you can actually exhibit in that particular moment and the ability to conversate because you reached a certain level of emotional intelligence. So I don't believe that we're not in tune, we're learning. And I think that's where it is.
Got
As
it.
we continue to learn, one of the things that we would love to do is learn from you because we believe that you are more in tune with your emotions than you are. So I think the second part you asked is like, why do we shut down? Because it's noise. And it
Got
puts
it.
us in a state of anxiety. And that's not good because you seem adversarial. So I hope I captured everything that you addressed. It was a great question.
Oh,
And when
yeah.
it comes down to emotions with men, that is a very interesting topic that we must all consider.
I like that.
Yeah.
That is very eye opening because, like you said, if you start yelling, you stop listening.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're quiet, having a conversation, it's easier for you to hear it because it's as if I see it as a power thing. If you're yelling at me, I'm not listening. But if you treat me like you're equal, then I'm here to hear what you have to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the other part to it, and we see it all the time, and what we hear is the backside of the story. So you know how it is when you was in school, like the person who hits last is the one that gets in trouble. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
really what actually happens. What you're getting is the response from him when he hits sensory overload. He didn't start the yelling. He is only responding to the yelling at the
Right.
same level of energy that was at first sent towards him. But what ends up happening is that where he yells all the time and blah 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 blah. But you have to understand, energy begets energy. So when you bring
Hmm.
it to the table, it's like he responds at the same level, and it's almost like an attack. Well, he didn't intentionally attack you; he was just responding, right? And again, when you are suffering or you're searching to gain higher levels of emotional intelligence, instead of yelling, what we should be doing is talking at the other end of the spectrum. So if she is up here, I want to get my hand in the screen. If she is up here, then you want to talk down here because that helps to bring her down. But if we don't know that, then we just don't know that. And so that's kind of like how that ends up working, not necessarily in our favor, because the response is, let's be honest, you don't really want to fight with me either. You just want me to
Right.
hear how passionate you are about the topic of discussion.
Yeah. This is good. Those of you who are joining us, please, please, please chime in the chat. And if you have any questions, we would love to add you to this conversation. So don't be shy, type it in. If we can, we will read the question and go back and forth with dialogue.
Absolutely, absolutely. We appreciate everybody who's here. Thank you, Dwayne Richardson, for joining us. Chris McClellan from Chris across the table. I mean, great people. Thank you, Tina Crawford, for joining. I mean, we definitely welcome you guys. And for all of those who I can't see, because I got a couple of screens up right now and I can't see everybody, but for those who we can't see, again, thank you for
Javon
joining us.
Miller, thank you for joining us. I'm looking
Yeah.
on my phone on Facebook so that
Okay.
way I can capture the Facebook audience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dwayne brings up a good point. He said, "Use your inside voice to communicate," and that's kind of like the point that I was saying. Like if she is all the way up here, you want to bring your tone down here to get her to relax, because there's a common theme to understand that when emotions are high, cognition slows down. So even
Mm,
at the peak of yelling, you guys aren't even processing the information that you're sending back across to one another. So you want to kind of get her to come down, woman, wife. If he is up here, you want to speak down here to get him to calm down as well. Once we get down to a low manageable tone, then we can use our inside voice and communicate respectfully back and forth to one another. So again, the emotional conversation is just one of those conversations that can go on and on and on.
yeah,
But this is all part of communication, right?
it is.
It
And we
is.
have to communicate in order to get some type of understanding.
Which means I get to hit you with my next question.
All right, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Everybody know this, right? We've heard it before. There's a book written about it, and again, the book is all about communication. And this is called Men Are from Mars and Women Are from Venus." Now, if you heard me talk, you probably heard me use this before, and I think it's true based upon my experience. I'm not gonna lie about that one, but I'm not saying it's 100% true. So when it
Okay.
comes down to processing information, it is said that men stop talking and think, and then they speak, to where women talk and they process the information while they're speaking. So it may sound like rambling and it may sound like a lot of just information that's being injected into the atmosphere, and then eventually she'll get to her point. What is your thoughts behind those ideas? Like men are from Mars and women are from Venus.
I haven't read the book, honestly, but I will say I don't agree. For me, because I can't speak for all women, I have already rehearsed what I want to say before we even had a conversation. Because I want to make sure I get all of my points out. And then as they come up in the conversation or more are downloaded, then it seems like, okay, I might be rambling, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out all the points because as a woman, I want to be heard.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave anything out because I know that we might have your attention span for a short amount of time. So I want to make sure that I'm hitting the keynote, the bluff, bottom line up front. Now, for my counterparts, some ramble. I have friends that it's like, come on, girl, get to the point. What is it you trying to say?
Yeah.
But I don't see it as we think as we're talking. No, we've already processed and now we're talking. And then as we continue to talk based on your body language, your responses, now we're thinking even more as we talk to respond to what you're saying.
That's good. That's good. So I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying before I respond. So for you, and I got it, you're not speaking for everybody. So for you, what you do is you've already, because I mean, you already know what you want to say. But
Yes.
then based upon the posture of the other person, the body language, that helps you to understand whether you need to kind of elaborate and expound on what it is that you're saying to kind of help them better understand. Am I correct by saying that?
Yes. For
Okay.
me, that's me.
No, that's good. That's good. And just kind of, and I know I asked you the question, but I think this is important because I think the most important thing that we need to understand is that we need to be in a constant sense or a constant space of learning our mate. So just like she said,
Yes.
she thinks before she speaks, which means that she is very analytical. She processes information. She's probably a C personality type to where other people may not necessarily do that. They may just, say this thing and that sparks a thought. And then they bounce over here and say this. And then they bounce over here and say this. And then before it's all over, all of these bits of information come together as one solid thought in the end. If you learn that person, then you understand how they communicate, and then you give them enough space so that they can actually do the necessary level of rambling. I mean, and I'm just being honest, the necessary level of rambling so she can formulate a complete thought. That's not wrong. You just have to learn and have the level of patience for that. For me, I'm a lot like Onita. I'm very analytical. So trust and believe if there's a problem, I have already gone through the conversation with you in my head at least 3 times and already came up with possible solutions for the responses that you're going to give. If she says this, then maybe I need to think about this. Well, what if she does this? Okay, well, let me go this route. Well, the last time we had a issue, this is what she did. Well, if she do that again, this is going to be my response. That's me. I'm serious. I am
Right.
very
Right.
analytical, and I don't mean any harm by it. It's just that I think here it is, man. I just believe that we need to be prepared for the response so that we're not caught off guard. And I think that's a beautiful thing to do. So make sure that you learn who you're with. You are on a constant journey of learning your partner. If you believe you know them right now, just give them about 30 minutes. Trust me, life will happen, they will change, and you need to learn more about that person.
I just put that in the comments for Facebook. Learn who you're with. That's very important. Because if
Absolutely.
you don't know that, who you sleeping with?
Absolutely.
Who you,
Absolutely.
the enemy? Is no reason for you not to know
Yeah.
who you're with, who you've decided to do life with. And like you said, I am very analytical, which can be a problem because it's black and white. This is what it says, this is what it is. There's no deviation. And if there is, I want to see where it's at. I want to see the solution. I
Yeah.
want to see where you got that idea from. Is
Absolutely.
it something that you just thought, or is this written somewhere? Like, let's get down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
It's not just a philosophy. I want to know where it came from.
Yeah.
So I am very analytical. I have to be that way in my job. I'm a paralegal by day, so I'm looking at what's black and white, what could be proven, not what I think.
Mm.
So I'm approaching the conversation that way. I know for a fact this is what I did, and I know for a fact this is what you did. How do we move forward in this?
Very good. Very good. I love it. I was going to say something to go along with what you said, but I think I'm gonna hold it because I think it's gonna
Okay.
come up later. But yeah, I agree with you 100% because that's just how I am. As an analytical thinker, I need the information up underneath the facts, and the facts are important to me, and it's important for me to identify the facts as well. So absolutely. Antoine, appreciate you, brother. Good to see you again. Always good to see you on with us. Yeah, and Dwayne said counter to counter, absolutely. So it becomes kind of like a low key boxing match going back and forth. So I appreciate that. Good to see you, Don. Welcome to the show. All right, ma'am, you have the
All
floor.
right.
I'm nervous, y'all. I'm
Okay.
nervous.
Okay. Okay. So, do you think, or is a myth that men um, they have to be the higher paid or the breadwinner in the home in order to feel like they're in charge? Do you think that's true, or is that just something that society has just started saying?
Yeah. So I know no man who believes that. Just being honest. I, for one, and again, I'm, what you're going to hear mostly is that we're answering these questions from our perspective, but it's also
Right.
based upon the circles that we travel in and the conversations that we have. So I, for one, know no man who believes that, but I also know no man who is complacent as well. So wherever they are right now, they're constantly working on themselves to make a higher paycheck in whatever space that they're working in. Now, that has absolutely nothing to do with her and how much money she is making. Trust me, if I'm making, I don't know, $200,000 a year and she making $200,000 a year or $250,000 a year, I appreciate the fact that she make $250,000 a year. And she gets no pushback from me in relation to that. But what I believe those conversations are trying to say is that based upon some previous information, society at one particular point in time viewed a dollar bill as a method of power. And so
Yes.
what they're saying is that now that women are making money, well, you no longer have that power over women. Well, newsflash, I don't think there's any men who ever wanted power over women. We'll get there later, right? But so when it comes down to it, do I know men who make less than their wife? Yes. Do they feel less empowered? No, because they have a more deeper understanding of relationship that goes way beyond what a dollar can ever bring to the relationship. So I think that is a myth. However, I also do believe that that exists in certain spaces, just not in the spaces that I travel in. And I caution people who actually do that, like they hold a dollar above a person's head, because at the end of the day, if we really think hard about that, there has been times in the past in history where someone may have held something over your head, and you can actually reflect and see how that actually worked for you or a group of people. Let's just say it that way. So it's not a good method of creating and developing a healthy relationship if you have a thing that you're holding over a person's head. And yeah, I just don't. I haven't seen that. Not at all. Again, and thank you, Sherry. You're absolutely right. It's all about power, and again, power, control, money. That's exactly what it all boils down to. And again, for me, I just don't know anybody who believes that.
So, piggybacking off of that, the reason why I said that is because historically, when women weren't working and the male was the breadwinner, they would stay in the home even though they were abused because they didn't have money to leave. So, like you
Right.
said, it was held over their head as a tool to lock them in so that way they couldn't leave and
Right.
they felt they couldn't go anywhere because they weren't making any money. So, like you said, now that women are making money and we making a lot of it, we're able to say, go, and do what we want because we don't feel that we're enslaved to a man. We're not enslaved to a relationship because the male is the breadwinner or we're not bringing anything to the table, the same to the table, or even more to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And again, if any man who who's worth his grain of salt, I want you to go. I want you to go spend time with your girlfriends. And trust me, I need to go spend time with my guys as well because those are healthy, hopefully, those are healthy relationships that becomes an extension of your relationship. So when we come back together, we're better for one another because we have people outside of the relationship that actually feeds into it. So when you talk about that, I agree with that 100%. But again, we should never be in a relationship that looks like any version of control whatsoever. Now, control, we got to be careful with that word. I want to make sure I'm stressing that because what I've also learned is that the word control has been used to kind of paint a particular picture for something that doesn't exist. So if it does not go my way, then I'm going to paint the picture that it looks like they're trying to control me so that I can get,
Mm,
you see what I'm saying? So we got to be
right.
careful with the word control.
We can use it
Remember,
as manipulation.
right, exactly. Remember, power is based upon what I convince a person to believe. It's not necessarily power all the time. It's also the illusion of power. And if I can convince you that I have power, then I have power.
The power of influence.
There you go. Absolutely. All right. I'm leaning back. Who turn is it? My turn or your turn?
It's your turn.
It's my turn? All right. Very well. All right. Here we go. This is one I'm telling you. Let me just go on and put it out there. The bottom line when it comes down to this one is that women don't know what they want. Now, here's what that looks like. And I even tested this not too long ago just to see if there was any truth to it. So I asked a very specific question, and the response that I got was like an umbrella. And I was like, whoa. I said, wait, that didn't get after the answer, the question that I asked. And so, but I had the response was, but I answered the question. I'm like, no, you didn't. You kind of gave me this, right? But I'm asking a very specific question. I said, here, let's try it like this. Ask me the same question. And then when I was asked the question, I went step by step, bit by bit, process by process, detail by detail. So once I got finished with my response, there was no confusion about what I want. So the key or the question that I'm getting at here is that do women articulate what they want to such a degree that anybody that they're talking to can walk away from that conversation knowing precisely what they want?
I believe that we do. Now, it depends on the question. Maybe the question that was asked, that woman doesn't know in that area, but most women know what they want. Did you ask the right question? Is my question. Because you may have asked a question in your mind that should have gotten just a one line answer, where to me is no, I need to expound on this. I got to
Right.
build my case to show you why. Again, I'm an analytical person. I'm
Yeah.
going to give you the basis, then I'm going to give you my thesis behind why. And then I'm going to walk you through the steps where you may think, well, you didn't answer the question. And all the while, I really did answer the question. And I
Yeah.
gave you all steps to achieve what I asked.
Yeah. She said the thesis, y'all. I mean, she's getting detailed in her responses. No, I mean, but listen, that's good. And again, so I would say, and I'm not, again, we can't put everybody into one mode of understanding. Everybody won't fit in this particular conversation that we're having because it doesn't apply to everybody. It doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
But what we have to understand is that there are some people who speak in vague circles, right? And so
Yes.
they give a response, and the person can actually say that doesn't answer my question. And then they can give, well, I did answer your question. Well, no, you answer. I mean, you gave an answer, but you didn't answer the question itself. And so they'll go back and forth, just doing all of that to get to the point to where finally the person will yield and answer the question. Well, why we just couldn't do that in the beginning? And unfortunately, that happens sometimes. But yeah, we just got to be careful. Focus on the question that is actually being asked and answer it at that particular level. Sherry Sweet, good to see you. And I apologize. I will stop. By the way, she said I'm badgering you. I apologize.
Oh, no, 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 no. This is great
It
communication.
is. It
Okay.
is.
We are having a conversation so both genders can be enlightened.
Absolutely.
And ladies, please, 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 again, ask your questions in the chat.
Yeah.
Fellas, ask your questions in the chat because we want to have dialogue that we both can learn from. Not just me and Coach Dwayne, but everybody that's tapped into this live. Because if we don't get it together, then we're going to keep going around in circles where you said, you asked the question, but I didn't answer.
Yes.
And then you asked the question a different way, and then I
Mm-hmm.
actually answered it. And then the question is, well, why didn't you say this before? Well, you didn't ask me this before.
Yeah.
There was a
Absolutely.
change in the question. So therefore, it's clarified to me. Now I can actually answer it because you didn't ask that the first time.
Right. I love it. I love it. Absolutely. We gotta pay attention to our partner and respond to the thing that they're asking. Like, if we don't do that, I think we're missing a large piece of this beautiful thing that's called communication. And
Yes.
and sometimes there's those habitual responses, and I give you a perfect one. If you see somebody and say, "Hey, how you doing?" That person is automatic. I'm fine. They're not even thinking about it. They're just going to respond a particular type of way. We have to get out of the habit of doing that, right? If a person asks you a question, be honest and open to them based upon the question that they ask. Okay, I digress.
But that's good. We do say, "Oh, I'm good. How's your day going? It's going great. How about yours?"
Yeah,
It's like we just trying to move past it. But I've learned that I just can't fake it. It's in my face. It's in my body language. If I'm not in a good mood, people who know me, I'm uplifting, I'm positive all the time. Just a slight hesitation in the answer, they know. Nah, you ain't all right. It was a
absolutely.
hesitation there. So you got to know your people. Like you said, know who you're with and know who your tribe is too.
Yeah.
Who's in your community,
Yeah.
the people you can go to when you have issues. And I know that's not a part of what we're talking about, the topic, but that's free, okay?
That's free. I love it. More free chicken. Let's have it.
Right.
I'm
So
bracing.
I
I'm
think it's
bracing.
on me.
Yeah, I'm bracing. I'm
Sherry did
bracing.
say a couple good things. She said paying attention is key, and it is.
Absolutely.
That's with your partner, your husband, your wife, your children, your coworkers, even, because there's some people that are sitting there in silence and they're suffering in silence because they don't think that they can talk to you.
Absolutely.
People
I
are
love it.
suffering in relationships because they don't want to express themselves. But
Absolutely.
I digress. So
Uh-oh. I'm
I'm going
nervous.
to ask you about this myth. And I really do think that this is the truth. I don't think it's a myth. Men feel entitled, meaning that just because they're the man, that we automatically should submit to them without them giving us a reason to submit. Floor is yours, sir.
All right. This is where I take my gavel and hit the table and say, court's adjourned. No, I'm joking. So, again, this conversation is not this answer is not going to be conducive for everybody. Everybody is not going to fit this mold. So it's going to actually be a layered response. First and foremost, for those of us who believe like I do, who believe in the Bible, we kind of take our guidance from that particular source of information. And so in the book of Ephesians, chapter 5, Paul lays out a perfect plan for us. He tells us, like, husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church. And then he goes around and continues and he said, wives, love your husbands. I'm sorry, not love. Wives, respect your own husbands. Now,
Yes,
if you continue to progress along, he gives great detail to the wives on what their quote unquote responsibilities are. I got it. Somebody just cringe behind the word of responsibility, but don't shut down on me yet. Just flow with me for a second. But what he does not do is he doesn't give great detail on husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church. He
that's true.
continues. He continues. And then he says that the church that Christ is to sanctify the church with the washing of the water by the word of God. So if you paid attention, there's a comparison that exists there. Christ in the church, husband and wife. So we can conclude based upon that passage that the husband is supposed to sanctify his wife with the washing of the water by the word of God. Now, the implication there is that there is an agreement that happens before the marriage takes place. The way we know that this is true is when you continue through the passage, Paul says, but this is the great mystery, but I speak concerning the church. So what he is telling the Ephesians, that I'm not talking about marriage right now. I just want to focus on the church because that's what I'm charged with doing. But for those of you husbands and wives who want a good depiction on how to go, this is it. The challenge in all of this is that the husband has to go back and study what it means for Christ to love the church. There is no blueprint. It requires him to study. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness. That being said, if there was an agreement that was made in the beginning, so this is where we separate. If we knew this beforehand and we made the agreement, then the agreement becomes the guiding light behind how we live our life. So with that being said, there is no entitlement based upon the agreement that we made because the wife agreed to allow the husband to sanctify her by the washing of the water by the word of God. In other words, he is her teacher. They talk, they communicate, they share all these other great things. So now with that being said, these people don't fall under entitlement. These people over here who never had that conversation and they decided that they were going to come together and they were going to live happily ever after because no one ever gave them a blueprint. No one ever gave them details. No one ever shared with them. The only thing that they have is that their parents did it this way and their parents did it that way. So the coming together of two tribes and how we live in harmony is a challenge. And so when it comes down to it, what ends up happening is that I don't know this and I don't know that, so I'm figuring it out en route. This is the thing that I always say: a a husband and wife is a team. I want to start right
Mm-hmm.
there. Husband and wife is a team, and if we can agree that there is a team, that they are a team, there has never been a team of any significant value that won any championship to where no one on that team knew their role. So, role players on teams are important. So, and I like to break it down like this, and I don't want it to come off in a very aggressive manner, but I think it's important to understand. When it comes down to it, what we have to realize is that you go to work, you have a job description. You have a job description, you know exactly what you're doing at work. So,
Okay.
therefore, because of your job description, you go through your performance evaluations and all that other great stuff. And at the end of the day, the way that you know that you're doing a good job is based upon your job description. You do your job description well, you get a promotion. Well, when we fight to take the job description away from the team, we are lacking the cohesiveness of the team. And so everybody want to be Michael Jordan on the team. Sorry, there's only one Michael Jordan on the team.
Right.
So what we have to learn to do is, here comes that word, we have to learn to submit to a higher authority than ourselves. Now, again, I know somebody just cringed at that word. Flow with me for a second. I ain't finished yet. Just be patient. Work with me, right? Submission is not servitude. Submission does not mean you're less than anybody else. Submission does not mean that you wait on the person's hand and foot. No, it's none of that. Submission means that you understand that you're equal, but because of the love that you have for God, you're literally existing in your relationship, serving God through your husband. That's all submission is. It doesn't make you less than that person, nor is that person supposed to make you feel less than them. Submission is the ultimate display of humility. When we understand that, it takes a very strong person who can actually look at somebody, and I'm just going to use this as a metaphor, not reality. Look at somebody that slapped them in the face and say, you know what, to God be the glory. So when we go back and look at, do men feel entitled? I don't think this is, I don't think that applies to everybody. And if you think about it, like every question we ask today is the same thing, right? That does not apply to everybody. But here's the deal: the man has to understand who he is. Listen, don't. I'm going to cringe again. Again, the agreement has to happen. You're not going to agree to let a person sanctify you by the washing of the water by the word if they don't know the word or they're pursuing this.
Hello.
You see what I'm saying? So it works both ways. But again, the understanding must happen in the beginning. If the understanding never happens, then you are literally just playing Russian roulette, if I'm just being honest with you. Because you don't know, and I'm just being honest, you don't know the intricate details of the person until 8, 10, 12 months down the road, and then they get mad. When they get mad, the real person shows up. At that point, you need to understand, do I want to deal with your level of crazy or do you want to deal with my level of crazy? Because we all got just a little bit in us. Let's just be honest. You know what I'm saying? Well, you stop it already. I'm just being honest, though. That's what we have to understand, right? So if we're getting married in, 30, 60, 90 days, wrong answer. I'm be honest. If you ain't ready to hang out for 2 years, don't even talk. Don't even have a conversation with me. It's going to take 2 years just to get to the point to consider it, because I need to understand the ins and outs of who you are. And that's just what reality is. But there is also another conversation that exists in the balance that says after the 6 months, after the 6 month period, what are they waiting on? Well, you can listen to them if you want to. Just, but that's that learning piece. If
Right.
you don't take the time to learn, then you're going to be surprised. And I don't mean pleasantly, just being honest. So when we go back and consider the entitlement piece, I don't think it's entitlement. I think what everybody is trying to do is understand who they are. It's identity. When they understand identity, then they can literally behave to what the description of their identity is saying. I give you a perfect example. Go back into the Old Testament. I need you to go to Pharaoh and tell Pharaoh to let my people go. Wait, hold on, God. I mean, I understand that, but me and Pharaoh, we grew up together. I mean, he killing folk. Can we consider something else? Like, who am I? That's what he asked. He said, "Who am I that I am to go unto?" That's a powerful word right there. Unto, he's already admitting that he is a lesser person than Pharaoh. But God
Right.
never answered his question. He said, "Don't worry, I'll be with you." So that's the issue. That's the journey. Everybody's on a journey so that they can have a better understanding of who they are. And until you do, we're always going to hang our perceptions around a person's neck and give them a title. They're entitled because they don't want us to be empowered. That's not true. Every man that I know who has a wife that understands the team literally lifts her up, just like Paul said. So that's kind of like my answer. It was long winded, but again, for me, I don't know anybody who fits in that category that believes that they're entitled to respect because they're just breathing air. No, go look at them. I promise you, they're doing something that says, "Hey, that person's kind of significant within this household." So, just my thoughts. I know it was long winded, and I apologize for that.
So I want to make sure that I read what Sherry Sweet said. She said, "In relationships, we need to be equally yoked. Can we see it, feel it, and some just ignore it? Entitled, want it just because one or the other feel they can have it." So when I've been in the dating world, a guy, one of the first conversations is, "Can you submit?" Excuse me? Can I? Did you give me a reason to? Why are we even having this conversation? Because if you have to ask me, then the answer is no. Because you haven't shown me why. It's almost like they automatically think that, oh yes, I can submit. I can well, any woman can submit, and it's not that we're debasing ourselves. I want to make this clear. Submission is not debasing who you are.
Right.
You're not doing that. You're submitting to the man who is the covering of the home, who's then submitting unto God, like you said. So the husband is answering to God about how he treats us, and we are to respect the husband. So it's not that we are lowering our crown, that we are debasing ourselves because we are submitting, but I see it. Some men feel entitled that we're automatically supposed to do it when they, quite frankly, haven't earned it. It's not something that you just give. It's a conversation, like you said, before you go into this marriage
Yeah.
about different roles, who you are, knowing your role as the husband and as the wife. And when you have that conversation, it's easier for you to become this team. It's easier for you to move forward as one. It
Yeah.
says, "A man shall leave his mother and father and cleave unto his wife." Well, they're becoming one flesh. And if you don't know your role individually, you coming together is going to make it that even harder or that much harder.
Absolutely. And I want to make sure because I don't want people to mistake what you just said because you said some powerful things. Um, Again, proving it means that you're having the necessary conversations that you are relaying to her your identity. You're showing her through the art of conversation that you are pursuing a life after Christ. That's what proving looks like. It's not about laying the bank book on the table, none of that stuff. That stuff is immaterial. And if that's what you feel it is, then you should just leave the table automatically. Just being honest. Never put yourself out there based upon the extensions of your identity. It is your pure identity that actually helps her to understand like this is the person that I believe that can lead us to the promised land. Notice I said us, not me, that can lead us to the promised land. Because to jump on once I decide to jump in the boat with him, we going in the same direction. Here's
Right?
another thing I want to make sure I'm clear as well. There's only one vision in the house.
That's it.
There's only one. When we have two visions, two is division. So you can come in the house with your vision all you want to, and that sounds great, but we got to have a conversation so we can understand what the merging of the visions look like. And if we're not talking about that, then the only thing we're doing, again, we're jumping in this car and we're going to drive down the street doing a high rate of speed on a dead end road with a brick at the end. That's what we're looking at doing. We're going to run into that brick wall. Division will tear your home apart. So if you're not having these conversations up front, if you're not helping her to understand who you are, not what you bring to the table, stay away from people that tell you to look. What do they bring to the table? Stop talking to people. Stop talking about what a person brings to the table. That's one of the biggest problems I believe we have right now in this society. Understand who the person is. Forget the stuff. What do we call it? The bag now? Forget the bag. You know what I'm saying? Forget the bag. The bag doesn't matter. Learn the person. If you learn the person, the bag comes with the person.
It does, because you build each other up. You can
I
pour
don't.
into each other. You
Yeah.
become a great working team. It's not, you know, the mission is clear, and we're going to get after it if we are, like minded. But if it's two different thought processes, two different visions, well, I want to do this and then you end up divided and you end up divorced.
Absolutely. But again, I don't want to get off on a tangent. You asked me about entitlement. That's what you.
I did.
You saw I got a little excited, man. I got a little excited. But listen, I'm just want to be. I want to explain why I got excited because I think that's a very important conversation to have. If we don't have this conversation, trust me, man, it's gonna cost you a lot of money. Just being honest. I know from experience.
That was good. I mean, whoever didn't know, they know now.
Well, I mean, Well, no, they heard it. We never underestimate the power of seeing.
You're right. You're right, because we all decide what we
Yes,
want
indeed.
to keep in our toolbox and things that we say, nah, that ain't for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, so we got some other questions that some
Okay.
people actually put in the chat as we were setting this up, and I want to make sure I honor those individuals. And again, shout out to everybody who's actually listening. We greatly appreciate you. Thank you, Michelle Ray, for joining. Thank you, Sherry Sweet. Man, Sherry's laying down some science down there. I love
Okay.
it. I love it. Michelle mentioned the human. Oh man, they're all the way up there. I missed all of that. I guess I really did get into my response. Man, they were having a whole conversation. Let me see. I want to make sure I honor that. Let me see. Question: If a man was not presented love in his childhood, do you believe he is capable of knowing how to oh, wow, that was good.
That is good right
That
there.
is a very
Mm,
good question. Thank you, Michelle, for that question. This is I'm sorry, I answered the last question. Let me yield to you first, and I'll let you answer that. So let me read the question again. If a
okay.
man was not presented love in his childhood, do you believe he is capable of knowing how to or recognize how to love a woman?
That is awesome. So I'm not a man, but I would say that everyone is capable of loving, right? Even if you didn't receive it. Because when you don't receive it, there's a yearning for something that you don't have. So
Yeah,
you begin to study, you begin to yearn for it even more. You go looking for it, you go looking for examples. Now, would it be harder for a man to love who didn't receive it? Yes, because it's hard to reciprocate something you never had,
yeah,
right? So using me as an example, there are things that I didn't have in my childhood.
yeah,
It was harder for me to do for my own kids because I didn't get it. So it was hard for me to reciprocate it. But then I had the thought of, I didn't have this, so let me give this. Let me be the one who starts this. Let me end what happened and let me pour into my kids the way I want it to be poured into.
yeah,
So I do believe that men and women are able to love even though they didn't receive it, but it's a choice that has to be made, that I won't do what was done to me. There is a choice that has to be made of, I'm going to be the change. I'm going to be the person that the generations that are being birthed out of me, they're going to receive the love that I didn't get. Is
yeah,
it hard? Yes. The weight of it is hard, but the generations that are coming from you, they deserve that. So you do the work and say, yeah, I'm going to love. I
yeah,
know it's hard for me. I might have some people that give me pushback, But I can do this because it says in the word, I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me. And
Mm,
he is love. So if we know who love is, and we are the beloved of the one who is love, there's no way that they can't. It's a
mm.
choice.
I love it. I love it. I agree, 100%. And here's the thing: you and Chris must have been reading the same book because Chris pretty much said something similar to that as well. Chris said, as a man who wasn't presented love in my childhood, I'm going to say yes, but it is going to take a lot of work. It isn't easy for us to trust right out the gate, and I agree 100%. Let me kind of go a different route. It's not going to be a different route. It's going to be it's going to be an extension of what you said. You said that he is love. The Bible helps us understand that God is love. We go to First John. I want to say First John chapter 4. First John chapter 4 really lays down the ins and outs of love and help us to understand something that we may not have understood before. Let's be completely honest. There has been some brainwashing and hoodwinking going on in the world about what love looks like. It is not Cupid.
Yes.
It is not flowers. It is not candies. It's not none of those things. Those are an extension that you do to show someone how you feel. That is not love. I want to make sure I'm saying this because I think it's important for us to understand. When we go back and understand the fruit of the Spirit, there are a total of 9 of them. The first one is love. That's your highest spiritual virtue, right? So in First John, he helps us to understand that if we love, we are of him. So in essence, what we have to understand is that love is an extension of who we are in him. So we must pursue him. This is what I tell young men. This is my message that I'm telling young men. I want to say it a third time. This is the message that I'm telling young men. Stop pursuing women. Pursue your purpose. You pursue
That's
your
good.
purpose. The purpose is so that you can, number one, renew your mind so that you can prove his will. That's what you do. You do that until she shows up. So number one, renew your and pursue your purpose. Don't pursue women. Pursue your purpose. Secondly, after you make up your mind to pursue your purpose, I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong. Let me back up. Marry your purpose. Pursue your calling. That's the deal. So you marry your purpose. Well, what does that look like? That looks like Christ in the church. So when you marry your purpose, you are becoming the bride of Christ. So in marrying your purpose, now you can pursue your calling. When you do that, what you will find is that those spiritual virtues that exist, love, joy, peace, meekness, temperance, kindness, right? All those will become a part of your character. So when it comes down to love, regardless of whether you were shown it from your mother or your father, regardless of whether you've seen it growing up or not, eventually it will become a part of who you are. And then in doing so, you don't have a choice, person, because you greatly appreciate how much God loves you. And I think that is the ultimate answer. That is the extension on what you were saying when you said that he is love. Absolutely. And I think there, when you lean into that piece right there, it reshapes who you are. So you forget about the Cupid. You forget about all this other stuff that
Right.
makes absolutely no sense. You stop going back to what Walt Disney taught us when we was younger. Look for my Prince Charming so we can live happily ever after. Never exists. It doesn't exist, right? So now, when we understand how he loved us, so he gave. Oh, so now that's different.
Mm-hmm.
So now I don't look to manipulate people to love me. I become the servant. I become the servant of love, him.
Right.
So that's what that looks like. Right now, what you're experiencing in this world is what I believe is a form of manipulation that we're calling love. It's not love.
I don't have nothing else to add.
Very well, very well. Okay.
That was a great question.
Yeah, it was a great question. Thanks, Michelle Ray. Again, another great question. So going over here to the actual question that I put into the event itself, Garfield Martin's question was, well, his myth was that women are the prize. So what are your thoughts behind his myth? Women are the prize.
Well, I mean, we may or may not be a prize depending on the person, but we are a good thing. And a good thing you obtain favor from, I would think that you won. That's just me. So, am I the prize? Yes, but I also believe that my husband could be a prize to me as well. It's not just one sided, it's both people who are following Christ, who know their purpose, that they come together and then they're moving forward in that purpose, because marriage, that's not just to be married to have sex. It's not.
Yeah.
It's there's a mission behind it.
Yeah.
So whatever the mission is, you both are singularly going that way, not two different people or two different visions like you said before. So if I'm not the prize, then what am I?
Mm. That's a good question.
I would look at it, I'm high hanging fruit. I ain't the fruit on the ground. I'm not the fruit
I
that you was
love it.
gonna pick up. Oh, that was easy. No, 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 no. You're
Yeah.
gonna have to climb this tree. You're
Yeah.
gonna have to reach for this.
Yeah.
And men, I believe, are natural born hunters. It says that he who finds, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
you find, you're seeking something, you're looking for it. And you're gonna keep looking until you find it. Well, you're hunting for this. And once you get it, say you go out hunting deer or whatever, and you catch the biggest one, you want to show the picture. Look what I got.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you not showcasing this? I'm not trying to say that we are
No, no, no. You're
animals and we are
fine.
to be hunted down. I'm just using this as, I don't want the women to be like, we not. No, I'm not saying that we are animals. I'm just saying I believe that we are a prize to be won. And we shouldn't be so easy to give in to the first thing that looks good on paper,
Yeah.
because it may look good on paper, but how does it look internally? It's
Mm.
a mess up in there.
Absolutely.
So if you won and if I won, then we both are winning together. We're a team.
Yeah.
We on the winning side. So yes, I believe that we are a prize.
I love it. I love it. I think I know where the question came from. There's kind of like a underlining, kind of like an underlining thought that exists to where I don't know. It's almost like a degree of competition that exists in space between men and women. And then if men don't conform to what the woman want on the initial greeting or whatever that looks like, or they don't meet the criteria, right? Then they at some point reject the man or make the man feel any lesser than. But before you knew what you knew, you were willing to give him conversation. But because he didn't meet your quote unquote criteria, doesn't make enough money or whatever that looks like, then you're rejecting him, which literally is making some men feel, again, lesser than. And so I think that's where that question comes from. I actually think it's a great question. It's a tough question though,
It is.
because we don't want to, we're not going to downplay ourselves for the sake of a conversation. I think people are prized. I think all of God's children are value. And when we look
Right.
at it from that perspective, we don't intentionally make anybody feel less than who they are. That kind of goes back to the submission question as well. Even though if she was to submit to me, I still make her feel valued. It's not like, I put her in
Right.
a, have my food ready by 10 woman. No, it's nothing like that. Not even close. So everybody's surprised. I think at the end of the day, when we look at it, I think we recognize, we view God's children through the lens of Christ, which means that they're valuable because he sacrificed his life for them. Once we do that, then absolutely we view them as a prize. They view us as a prize because we value one another, which is ultimately what this conversation is all about, because we are better together than we are apart. That's the
Yes.
key. Because I kind of view it like the whole yin and yang, the symbol, the yin and yang, right? It looks different, but it fits. Well, it's different colors, but they fit perfectly together to make a perfect circle. And that's what I think men and women are. And until we get to that point to adopt that mentality, we're going to continue to go back and forth about pointless information. So, great question, Garfield Martin. We greatly appreciate that. I want to jump on my man Dwayne Richardson question here. And because I have two screens up, I'm just going to run through them real quick.
Okay.
And Dwayne, I apologize. I had to move off that screen. So if you're sending messages on Facebook, please continue. I greatly appreciate. He asks, he says, it's always the man that needs to change. Oh, wow. Yeah. So as a man, I want to, why we got to get the face though? So let me kind of clean up what he is saying. I know what he's saying. I know what he's saying, right? What he is saying is that at some point when it comes down to disagreements, The idea is that the man must change. In fact, especially, I've heard that being said in some of the older generations as well. So, as a man, if I may, I think I put enough pressure on myself to constantly change. So I live by the motto of every day is another opportunity for me to be a better version of myself. So I don't need another person to tell
Mm-hmm.
me that I need to change. It is intrinsic. It is a level of intrinsic motivation within me. Now, if we have a disagreement, for me, I'm a lot like Anita. I need to identify the facts. Now, you can say I feel all you want to, and I hear everything you're saying. But after you tell me how you feel, I'm going to ask you, what do you know? Like, what do you know? Like, what are the facts? And then we're going to analyze the facts because this is what I honestly do believe. Our emotions are simply just guides. They're like indicators to help me to understand where I am between the space of my existence and the reality of the facts. So if the IRS sends me a letter in the mail and I get it, listen, I may feel some anxiety. This letter is from the IRS. That's the facts. How I feel about
Right.
it, I don't really want this letter. So I can't
Right.
fix the IRS, nor can I fix this letter. I got to fix me. That's the key. So a lot of times what we do is we get engulfed in our emotions and we think our emotions is reality. So when it comes down to it, your emotions are never reality. Your emotions are only a reflection of where you are in the space compared to reality. But we must first be able to identify reality accurately first. So when it comes down to it, it's always the man that needs to change. I don't necessarily view that as a false statement, but I don't always view that as 100% every time. I think it's incumbent upon everybody to change on their own. You shouldn't have to wait on me to tell you to change. If we're having a disagreement, let's understand the facts. Let's see who
Right.
offended who. Let's go ahead and let you understand how I feel about this thing that we understand that you did, which both of us understand is wrong, or vice versa. So I can go ahead and apologize to you for it, and let's get beyond this. Let's get back to harmony. I
Let's
think
move
that's what's
forward.
important. So no, I think that's a great question. I wanted to jump on that because it was a question about men, but I also want to be an advocate for men because just as though I'll stand up and defend them, I'm also going to be harder on us as well because that's my in group. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I think highly of my in group. So for me, I think we are valued. Therefore, it's time for us to bring the value to the table. Not monetarily. Don't ask me how much I make because you're going to get your feelings hurt. Sorry about that. Next question.
That's good. That's good.
Oh my God. Next question. Women are great communicators.
I'm gonna say we are.
Oh my gosh.
This is my in group. This is
I
my
love
in
it. I
group.
love it. I love it.
And the reason why I say yes is because early on in our adolescence, we are asked, what's wrong? How can I fix it? What are you feeling?
Yeah.
We're taught to express ourselves at a very young age. So as we grow, we don't have a problem expressing ourselves. It's our counterpart who may have even been raised in the same home, a sibling, where the parents didn't ask the son, what's wrong? How can we fix it? What are you feeling? So you got two growing up where one feels free and confident to express themselves, free and confident to vocalize what they need, where the other one is completely shut down.
Yeah.
And this is why we're having this conversation right now.
Absolutely.
So I do believe that we are great communicators. Because we've been taught to be great communicators. We've been taught to what's going on with the kids. And I'm not saying all men, but some men, you can be in the home with your husband, and the woman will pick up that the child is not feeling well faster than the husband will
Yeah.
because we've been communicating with our children. We know them. I'm not saying more, I'm just saying we have a different type of communication with the
Right.
child.
Right.
So we're able to see and react faster than the husband who may say, well, there's nothing wrong with them. And we're like, do you not see this? We're communicating where the husband may not be communicating or the man may not be communicating as much.
Yeah.
But we're taught at a young age, I believe, to communicate, to express ourselves, to you say what it is you want.
Yeah.
Where men is whatever she say, or don't say this, or if she happy, you happy. I don't believe that. A happy wife is a happy life. No, I don't want you to be sitting there miserable while I'm sitting here having fun thinking everything okay. And then one day I
Absolutely.
get divorce papers because I didn't know you was upset. Like I didn't know you
Right.
was struggling because you just
Yeah.
express yourself. So I do believe that we are better communicators. The majority of us. But speaking for me, because this is my in group. I'm here for the women. All the women I know are great communicators, and that could just be the group and the community that I'm a part of. But I teach my daughters, and I've taught them at a young age when they
Yeah.
came home from school. How was school today? And then they would expound on how school was, or what did you do, or what would you like to eat, or we're always talking, we're communicating. So when the house is quiet, I know there's something going on,
Right.
and I'm going to
Absolutely.
poke a little bit because that's not common for us. We are communicators, and I have that type of environment in the home where communication is constant.
Yeah. Now that was good. That was a really good response, and I greatly appreciate that. And what I would say, I don't disagree with what you're saying. Again, like you said it perfectly. It's not everybody, but I think collectively men are getting better when it comes down to communication. And I think part of that is again going back to our previous emotion conversation, right? Because men are becoming more in tune with their emotions. So
Mm-hmm.
we're finding ways to communicate better, even if it's not comfortable. We're fighting through the discomforts of communication, being emotionally expressive, and we're finding a way to relaying the message to such a degree that not only you understand the message, but you also understand how we feel about it. And I think that's important because when I look over here and I see this next question that brother hit me with in this chat, this is all you. I'm just this
Okay.
is all you. Men speaking their mind is an attack on women. When we speak our mind, we talk about the behavior, not the person. So answer that question from a brother Chris from across the table.
Okay, brother Chris from across the table. I'm not going to say a man speaking his mind or expressing himself is an attack on women. I would say it's how you speak and what you say that we perceive it as an attack on us versus the behavior. So, say I have an attitude. If you say, "Oh, that's just like women to do," now you attack women.
Yeah,
Now, if I have an attitude, you can say, "What's going on with you? Why are you acting this way?"
yeah,
That's how you address the behavior, not me or the gender itself. Because we can generalize, well, no man is faithful. Not all men cheat. We can say that, but that's not true. That's a blanket statement from someone who may have been in relationships where all the men that they dated cheated. That doesn't mean that all men cheat.
absolutely.
So I don't see it as an attack on women. It's how you say it, it's your delivery. And knowing how to communicate properly, what can be perceived as an attack on the woman versus you addressing the behavior itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that 100%. We kind of talked about that just a little bit previously. And I think you're 100% correct. You know, we have to talk in such a degree that it shows that we have taken the time to learn the person that we're talking to. The one thing that I cannot do is talk to my person, right? I cannot talk to that person like that person is just a random person on the street, right? That doesn't work out well. But you know, to his point, and I understand exactly what he's saying. I think a lot of times because remember I talked about those variances of expression. I think a lot of time because we are getting to the point that we're finding balance in our emotions. Sometimes we may speak up here, and it's passion. Like if you've ever like, there are certain things like you probably seen a few seconds ago. Like there are certain things that I talk about, I get extremely passionate about, and it sounds like my voice inflects and I get full. And you know, to somebody who don't know me, it's like, well, he's over there yelling, and I know he's not yelling. He's very
Right.
passionate about what he's talking about. Well, a lot of times, sometimes that's what you're going to find with some men, especially when they're talking about something that they really love. If they love and protect it, then they're passionate about it. And therefore, when they're talking about those things within the scope of loving and protecting based upon their understanding, then it's important enough to talk so that you can understand how I feel about it. And so, based upon his question, like I said, I get it. I understand where his question come from, but I wanted you to answer it because he needed to hear it from a woman's perspective. And again, that does happen outside of outside of the way that you explained it. There are some people out there who don't think on that level, and they do attack the person.
Right.
It's sad that that exists, but again, that's part of that very necessary conversation that you got to have in the beginning. Understand the
I
person that
would
you're
like
trying
to
to.
add
Yeah,
also,
absolutely.
I'm sorry, when you address the behavior, if you're constantly addressing this behavior, it should be a conversation then to get behind the root of the behavior because it's going to keep happening. If you don't know why you keep doing this, or well, you always act like, why do I always act like this? It shouldn't just be, I'm addressing the behavior and you see it's a pattern behind the behavior. Well, what's the root cause of this behavior? What's the
Yeah,
root cause of why I'm acting this way? Is it something that is triggering me that you're doing that I haven't healed from,
yeah,
and vice versa? So, when we think about behavior or you addressing the behavior instead of it being an attack, well, why did this behavior even happen? Why? Well, how did I get here?
yeah,
How did we get here? So I'm big on, I want a solution. Okay. I don't want to, if I keep telling you the same thing, and nothing's happening, then my behavior is going to change because I
absolutely,
want to get your attention. And once I have
absolutely.
your attention, and then you say, well, why are you acting like that? Because when we were over here, you didn't listen. So I had to change it up for you to get your attention.
Right.
So there's always a reason behind the behavior, and not saying that he's not correct in asking the question because it is a really good question.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But we need to do the work as not just women, but men also to get behind what is the root cause of this behavior.
Yeah. And I want to add one more piece to that as well. Do the work before you tie yourself to somebody's life. Don't tie yourself to
That's it.
somebody's life and then do the work because you're going to put them through an emotional roller coaster. And here's the reality of the truth. I'm sorry, unless you two have gotten married, they don't have a reason to stick around and wait for you to figure it out. So it's incumbent upon you because you already there are some things that we know about ourselves. The only thing that's been going
Mm-hmm.
on is that we've been fooling ourselves up to this point. Let's call a spade a spade. We done been through about 3 or 4 relationships with like three or four different people and told us the exact same thing. You need to listen. They're telling you something about yourself that exists in your blind spot. There's nothing wrong with checking to see whether or not there is some truth behind that. Do the work before you tie yourself to somebody else and make them suffer for your inability to take the initiative to do the work that is needed for you to be better. That's just what I believe. So that's it. Listen,
Yeah.
we've been on here for an hour and 15 minutes. I didn't even realize we were going this long. I
It's a great conversation.
this is why I look forward to our monthly meetups because we always go through conversations like this and we lose track of time. But listen, everybody who was on, everybody who's in the chat, we greatly appreciate you. Everybody who injected some questions. I wanted to make sure I called your name specifically because you guys are valued. You guys are value added to the show. And again, anytime we're on, you're always welcome to come back. Share it with friends, share it with family, share it with your loved ones so that they can hear a different perspective of the conversation that you may have been trying to have with them. I think it's important that we realize that we are better together than we are apart. Forget the narrative that exists out there that says us versus them. There is no us
Yes.
versus them. It's us and them. And that's how we have to be. Miss Onita, final words, please.
Well, it's been a great conversation. Per usual. I look forward to it. And I think we can continue this conversation, but also knowing that if we don't start the conversation that we're having now, we can't move forward.
Absolutely.
And I think in society, men are starting to become more aware of their emotions and that it's okay to express their emotions, and they're not considered to be weak. So, us as women, is not for us to talk bad about them when they express themselves, right? So when they're expressing themselves to us, that's a safe place. It's not for us to then use that information against them because then they shut back down.
Yeah.
So they should know that their hearts are safe with us and that they can trust us to share how they really feel so we can continue to grow together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great words. Y'all heard it from her. Listen, we're going to do this again next week. I mean, not next week. My goodness. I'm trying to expedite it already. We're going to do this again next month. We're going to do this again next month. We do this once a month. So by all means, jump on board, get into the chat, give us information. You're going to see I'm going to put the notification, the event notification out early. Once you see it, I'm going to put a question in there just like I did before. Give us your questions because as you see, we take your questions into account when we have our conversation. So again, thank you guys for participating. Miss Anita V, aka Anita Simpson. Again, go to her website, anitav.com. Amazing. Look at all the great and wonderful things she's doing. She is awesome. We appreciate her. Anita, thank you again for your time, energy, and efforts. Tell your daughters we appreciate them for allowing us to borrow you for a minute. They can have you back. They can have you back now. Yeah, absolutely. Listen, next month, I will let everybody know the time, the date and time. Again, we need all of you and more back here so we can have these great and powerful and impactful conversations. So on behalf of my co-host, Miss Anita Simpson, we thank you guys for being a part of this conversation. And until next month.